Hi all, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share news with you about a horrific house explosion that occurred in the evening hours on December 4th of 2023 in Arlington, Virginia. You may have seen the video of the massive explosion online as it circulated pretty quickly after a neighbor who witnessed the blast shared it out. But many details about the explosion weren't given as the story was unfolding. Hours later, police have issued a preliminary statement about what actually took place leading up to the explosion, but still no information about the suspect, who they believe may have been in the home at the time of the explosion, has been released. They did release information about the police officers on scene at the time of the explosion, though, and said that they only suffered minor injuries. Thank God. And none even needed to be transported to the hospital. But they said the explosion happened at a duplex, so we have no word yet if there were any other people in the home. I'll start by reading the preliminary statement released by the Arlington County Police Department. Then I'll play a couple interviews from officials and a neighbor who spoke with the news after the terrifying blast occurred, so you can hear firsthand what happened. But before I do, here's the video of the home explosion this video is about. I'll wait just a moment in case you want to lower your volume.
Oh,
According to police, at approximately 4:45 p.m. on December 4th, the Arlington County Police Department was dispatched to the 800 block of North Burlington Street for the report of possible shots heard. The preliminary investigation indicated a suspect discharged a flare gun approximately 30 to 40 times from inside his residence into the surrounding neighborhood. No property damage or injuries were reported related to the discharge of the flare gun. During the course of the investigation, officers obtained a search warrant for the suspect's residence and attempted to make contact with the suspect over the telephone and through loudspeakers. The suspect did not respond and remained barricaded inside the residence. As officers were attempting to execute the search warrant, the suspect discharged several rounds from what's believed to be a firearm inside the home. Subsequently, at approximately 8:25 p.m., an explosion occurred at the residence. The investigation into the circumstances of the explosion are ongoing. The Arlington County Fire Department responded to the scene to extinguish the fire. As of approximately 10:30 p.m., the fire is under control and crews continue to battle small spot fires. 3 officers reported minor injuries and there were no transports to the hospital related to the incident. The investigation is ongoing.
On Your Side at 10 starts now. We begin with a breaking news alert.
And we are tracking breaking news as we come on the air. We have multiple crews on the scene of an Arlington house explosion. What you're seeing on the right side of your screen is video from social media. A neighbor capturing the explosion as it happens. I mean, this house is literally blown to pieces. The entire home evaporates in a flash. Now, another camera angle shows the flame and smoke from blocks away. It's really just a frightening scene for this entire Arlington neighborhood. This is in the 800 block of North Burlington Street. We're waiting on word on whether anyone was inside. We have live team coverage tonight for you, so let's bring in our Megan Clark. She's about as close as she can get to the scene right now. Megan, what's the situation right now, and what do we know about how this all started?
Michelle, we're here off George Mason Drive. I'm going to get out of the way. This is, as you said, about as close as we can get to what is happening here. You can just see a massive police, law enforcement response, fire response here off of George Mason. And we're learning from police, the latest here is that police say officers were trying to serve a warrant at this home when someone inside shot off a gun, a suspect, firing several times, and that massive explosion that we showed you there occurred. Now, Arlington Fire, of course, has responded. As we were driving in, we were seeing crews still rushing into the scene here. We were seeing a large plume, a cloud of smoke up above from maybe where this home was. In fact, maybe as we zoom in here through the trees, you can still see some of the smoke. It is heavy in the air here, and this is just a terrifying incident for neighbors. We've talked with many people here on site who said they felt this explosion even from blocks away, just the sheer size of it. In fact, we spoke with one resident who came out to see just what had happened. He said he saw flares go up into the sky before the explosion happened, and here's what he described to us.
I looked outside and saw people going down to the street and saw emergency vehicles coming down, and there was something down this way. But you could feel the sound concussion. It was impressive. I've been here for 50 years and I've never experienced anything like that.
Now, again, still very smoky in this area. A lot of law enforcement here off of George Mason Drive, just up the way from Wilson Boulevard. So we're now from firefighters. Let's listen in.
Captain, Public Information Officer, Arlington County Fire Department.
At approximately 4:45 this evening, Arlington County Police Department responded to the 800 block of North Burlington Street for the report of possible shots heard. When officers arrived on scene, they determined a suspect inside of residence had discharged a flare gun. During the course of that investigation, officers obtained a search warrant for the residence. As officers attempted to execute that search warrant this evening, the suspect inside the residence discharged several rounds. The house subsequently exploded, and we continue to investigate the circumstances of the explosion. Officers on scene suffered minor injuries, but none of our officers required transport to the hospital.
Could you say what the warrant was for?
We're executing a search warrant related to the investigation of the discharge of the flare.
Is the suspect named John Yu?
The investigation is still ongoing into specific details regarding the identity of the suspect involved.
It's the first time you respond to this house, or have you had prior issues?
I don't have specifics about prior incidents at the house at this point.
Were there any other victims who were injured?
Right now, in the chaos of the scene, we're still evaluating anyone that may come forward with injuries. But as mentioned, nobody has been transported from the scene to an area hospital.
Is the suspect in custody, or what's the latest of the suspect's injuries?
The suspect was inside the residence at the time of the explosion. The residence is still on fire, and that process is still ongoing to put the fire out.
So the suspect has not been recalled or taken or in custody?
Correct. We have not been able, because the fire is still ongoing, we have not got onto the property yet in which the house exploded.
Do you know how many people were in the house, or if it was just that one person?
At this point, we're only aware of one individual who was inside the home.
So with the flare gun, that initial call, was that just because someone was shooting a flare gun, or was there some sort of concern that it was other explosive? Just was it just because of a couple flare gun shots?
Because of the discharge of the flare gun out to the outside of the residence, individuals in the area started to report the reports of shots heard in the area. As a result, our officers responded to investigate that incident and ultimately determined the suspect had discharged the flare gun outside the residence.
Were there any previous calls for police to respond to that residence, to that address?
As I mentioned, I don't have the specifics regarding previous incidents at the residence at this point. The investigation is still very ongoing, and we're still in the preliminary of the investigation.
Would you call this a barricade situation? Is that safe to say?
During the early parts of it, after we had obtained the search warrant, we were attempting to make contact with the individual. Our SWAT team was on scene. At that point, we would determine that the incident would be a barricade because the suspect had not exited the residence.
None of your officers were able to go inside the house?
We were attempting to do the search warrant. We were attempting to make contact with the individual when shots were discharged inside the residence.
I might have missed this, but any other damage to neighboring homes, and also as of right now, any power outages or any other effects to other neighboring residences as a result of this?
At this point, there is no reports of damage related to the discharge of the flare. Of course, the investigation is ongoing as to whether or not there's additional impacts to the area related to the explosion.
Does the fire department expect to put out the fire tonight?
Yes, fire department expects to put out the fire tonight. As mentioned, the fire is still active. We're waiting on one of the utility companies to arrive on scene to assist in securing those utilities before we can go further into the structure to continue with extinguishment.
We understand it's a duplex. Were there any other people that were taken out of the neighboring homes as a precaution?
The fire department evacuated neighbors as a precaution, but we can only speak to the surrounding structures.
Can we get a timeline? I know around 4:45, the initial call. When did the bigger explosion happen? Do we have a more precise timeline right now?
It was after 8. I don't have the specifics of the time in which the explosion occurred, but the original call for service is about 4:45, and then the explosion happened after 8 o'clock.
Are folks being let back into their homes, into that area, or is that going to be kind of taped off until this fire is completely out?
Right now, during the extinguishment efforts, those exposure buildings are going to be taped off. As soon as the fire is brought under control and there is no threat or risk of that fire spreading to those structures, neighbors will be brought back in as the situation determines.
And how many homes would you say, were evacuated, or how many people?
I wouldn't be able to provide you a specific right now.
I want to confirm that as of right now, no fatalities have been recorded.
At this point, but we have not made it into the home because the home is on fire. There have been no significant injuries related to our officers, and no transports to the hospital.
Any hazards? I know you guys say you're still extinguishing the fire, but any concern about hazardous materials inside, especially considering just the level of this explosion?
So as mentioned, the responders have not been able to make it into the structure, and we won't be able to determine what materials are inside until it is safe to do so.
I mean, I know it might be a little tough to speculate right now, but for an explosion this big, it seems hard to believe that this is just over a flare gun. Any sort of idea what could have made this explosion as big as it was?
As mentioned, the fire is still ongoing. The investigators won't be able to go in and do a specific cause and origin investigation until it is safe for the investigators to go inside.
I know you mentioned the officers had minor injuries, none needed to be transported. Could you describe the nature of the injuries? Was it smoke inhalation? Was it contact with debris? Could you describe anything further?
I don't have all the specifics at this point. We really want to emphasize that this still is really in the onset of this investigation. Our officers will remain on scene with our partners at the fire department and continue this investigation. We appreciate you all coming out tonight. As additional information is available, we'll be sure to release this, but these are all the details that we have at this point in the investigation.
Got a quick question for my colleagues. Merrimount on lockdown as a result of this or no?
Not that I'm aware of, but I could follow up.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Expecting another meeting tonight.
All right, so we've been listening to Arlington officials give us an update on what they know so far in terms of a cause, which is what a lot of people want answers to tonight. They're not yet able to provide that because, as they said, the fire is still ongoing. They haven't been able to get inside to figure out what may have sparked this.
But did show you that video of those flares going up. We did talk with one of the witnesses who saw those flares going up around 4:45. Take a listen to what she said. It sounded like the moment hours later of that larger explosion just engulfing that home in flames.
My roommate and I just got home and we heard like these gunshot sounding things and we just felt really unsafe, so we went back inside and I was laying in my bed and then it felt like we got attacked. And I got pushed forward. I mean, my roommates and I ran out and we looked outside and the fire was just getting going across. It was really scary.
It's still a very dynamic situation out here. As I mentioned, firefighters are still working to put out the fire, so they're still working to figure out how something from a flare gun could escalate into something so big. As far as injuries, what we do know is we don't really have any sort of injury update on the suspect, but we do know that a number of officers were hurt, but they only got minor injuries. They didn't even have to be transported to the hospital. As soon as we get more information, we'll be sure to keep you updated. But
we were just standing out looking and thought that was kind of weird, knowing that the cops were going to be pulling up sooner than later. And sure enough, they did. He didn't open up the door. They were trying to get him out for quite some time, and it was taking a while. So at that point, we got disinterested, went back inside and made dinner. And 3 hours later, at least, we see the SWAT truck arrive. And when the SWAT trucks arrive, you're like, all right, shit, things are getting escalated at that point. Yeah. And so we ended up going up to the top of my roof, which had a direct line sight to the place, and they moved the SWAT truck to the house, in front of the house, and what's up, Camp? And then they were trying to motion him to come out, please come out, we don't want to hurt you. And then they ended up driving the SWAT truck through the front door with a pile driving arm, And at that point, he started firing a weapon back. I mean, I believe it was like an AR. It was a high caliber weapon. So it wasn't a flare gun? It was not a flare. They shot flares at the beginning. He was not shooting flares near the end. They started returning fire with non-lethal weapon, with a non-lethal, they kept saying non-lethal, non-lethal. They're shooting a shotgun back into the windows, blasting out the windows a little bit. And then at that point, they reversed the truck back. They kept trying to yell to him. He sounded like he was trying to say something back, but they were like, look, we can't hear you. You know, please come out, you won't get hurt. And at that point, they reversed back and they changed the angle of the truck, and they were going to try to take out the window, the front window there, tell them to back up from the window. And at that point, they were driving forward to the window, and that's when the whole place went up. I mean, just absolutely. I mean, you saw the video. It was.
So what's going on through your mind as you're shooting this?
I mean, dude, it's blank. Are you kidding me? It's like pure shock. You see that, and you're just. I mean, I have my wife next to me. You know, my pregnant wife next to me, sitting there. You know, my buddy on the other side. She screamed. My other buddy's just screaming no. You know, I mean, it's just like there's no real. I mean, there's no explanation to it. I mean, I'm still in shock about it, to be honest. You know, so.
What time would you say this all started?
Like 4.
When he started throwing the flares out
shooting the flares over the soccer field onto like George Mason. So I mean, it was like guaranteed. I mean, I don't know if he was trying to draw the attention to himself. You know, this guy's been cooped up for years. All right, so he's closed off his windows. No one's really seen him for years. Yeah. He had a big like dispute with his wife, and like there's.
So you guys are familiar with the man who lives in that home?
Never seen him. Okay. Never seen him. Apparently his name's James Yu though.
Okay. And because you heard it.
No, not only that, it's well, we found out on LinkedIn, on his LinkedIn and stuff, and he was talking about the neighbors, which I do know the neighbors, and I feel terrible for them. I mean, their house is like gone.
The neighbor's house.
Well, it's a duplex, right? So you have 2 attached houses. It's like it's a townhouse, you know, pretty much, and the entire structure is gone, like way gone. I mean, like it was. I mean, I don't know what level of explosions that he had there. I believe he probably did the. I think he filled the entire place up with gas. I think he let natural gas run, you know, either broke a pipe or something, let it run for a while and then lit it. And I mean, there's nothing else that I would know that would be able to create an explosion like that.
Can you believe you actually witnessed that?
Hell no, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. No, I mean, we thought it was awesome just to watch him, you know, watch the vehicle go. Like that even got escalated to that point, you know, and. To then, once he started shooting back though, and it was not flares. Like there was an assault rifle being shot back.
So you're saying shots were fired from police and from
not from police. Police did shoot non-lethal, and they kept yelling non-lethal, non-lethal, and it was from shotgun shells, and they were blasting shotgun shells in there. I don't know what it was, but they were yelling non-lethal when they did it. But he definitely was shooting a weapon, a gun back when they went through the door with the vehicle.
Okay. Are you going to go to bed tonight?
It's going to be a while.
How's your wife doing, your expecting wife?
She's cleaning. She's cleaning right now.
Okay.
In the dark because we don't have any light right now.
Oh, all power's out.
All power. Yeah, I mean there's a big pole right there with the transmitter that went up as well. So, I mean Dominion's here, so hopefully we'll be able to get something back here shortly.
All right, well keep us posted. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this terrifying story. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.